And I'm kind of like EDS, which is why I had genetic testing done. I thought I had a kind of EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Color me surprised. Did not. I had a neuromuscular disorder. Ooh, interesting. Neuromotor disorder? Yeah. But I notice the hypermobility, and it's kind of like ataxia-ish too. Oh, I don't know what that was. Hi, guys. Hi. So I wanted to make a really quick video, and the topic is HSP SPG7. A bit ago, someone left a comment. So this says 2 weeks ago, but I saved it like a week ago. So it was like 3 weeks to a month ago. I got this comment, and it's very in depth. It goes into, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it goes into someone who really related to my story with trying to get diagnosed, and how doctors were just dismissing them, calling them lazy, basically saying it was in their head over and over, which is like unfortunately, it's a very common experience, apparently, for women and young women, and I'm assuming this person is a woman because she mentioned menopause. But yeah, so yeah, very common, which is a bummer and a half. But there were some questions in there that I wanted to make sure that I talked about because I thought they were really good. Okay, first one is, I wonder how I can get the full genome or exome panel done. How can I speak to a geneticist? And then she goes on to say how much this is affecting her life, it's affecting side jobs, hobbies, skills, and I get that, man. Oh my gosh. So, all right, let me try to stay focused. So the main topic here today is trying to get a diagnosis or trying to find answers for a condition like HSP, which has many systems involved. And for me personally, I think that why it took so long to get answers, even though early on I knew that it was genetic. I could point to my grandmom and go, she had this and she had this, and I kept bringing it up to doctors and saying, well, my grandmom, and like it looked like some of her siblings too, like it's definitely genetic. We've got a certain look and we've got a bunch of symptoms, and it's a pattern. And so even though I noticed that, so smart, I don't know, when you live with the symptoms and you're like, what was that? And then you look to your family because obviously you share genetics with them, you're going to notice patterns. And yet for some reason, the medical community, and I'm saying at large right now because there are individuals in the medical community that do look into these things and they do go after genetic testing, but it is not as common as I think it should be. And there's a lot of, morally, there are ideas where if you take, for example, growing up, I knew someone whose family had a history of Huntington's disease, and that is a it's also a neuromuscular condition. It's very similar to ALS. It's in the same class, it's in the same house, and there was a lot of, okay, do you get tested early to find out if you're a carrier? There was a lot of that, and I witnessed that firsthand within my friend group and how that affected different relationships and different ways individuals handled that news and that knowing in their family. So I had this experience growing up, like I witnessed this. I was just on the outside. And so to be where I am now, and I just keep thinking of, so my grandma, I love my grandma so much. She's dead now, but it's okay. She was old, like she actually lived a very long life and she was a lovely woman. And I think of her often. Obviously, I think of her often because, like, her genes are in me. I feel like a legacy. I made a painting about her called Her Legacy. And I feel like I'm coming into information that had she known when she was younger, she probably wouldn't have felt so different and othered. But that being said, she learned over time how to handle her differences. Like her ability to see. There were some mobility things that started to pop up later in life. Like for her, it was a bit later. For me, it was a lot earlier, apparently. So getting that information, like seeing the patterns in my family, having that knowing, but it still took me over a decade for doctors to start going, And not many of them went, Not many. The majority of the doctors that I saw were like, oh, I don't know. Which honestly, I appreciated the ones that were honest and said, I don't know, let me refer you to a bigger city. That happened very often. Unfortunately, I would go to the bigger city and they would act like I was just run of the mill, you know, just another patient coming in the door. And not to say that I was interesting or anything like that, but they didn't feel my sense of, oh my God, this is a big deal. They just thought, here's a referral, I'll tell them it's fine. They'll go away and they'll be fine. Basically, like burnt out doctors. That's what it felt like. Especially, you'll run into that in big cities because they're seeing tons of people. You'll run into that anywhere because even when there's a specialist or a doctor in a rural area, it's very rare to have a good specialist there. Not to say that they're bad, but to commit their time to going to a rural area, it's very difficult these days. And so there are long waiting periods. And I got tired. I got oh so tired of the long waiting periods. The last experience I had with a movement specialist, this was the third movement specialist I was seeing, and of course my hopes were kind of up, but I also felt my confidence was high enough that I could go to it myself. It was kind of at the tail end of COVID lockdown, so they had policies where only the patient and one other person could go. And I had a daughter, and she was one. And so my husband sat in the car with our daughter, and I went up in my wheelchair that day and was at the appointment by myself. And so I thought, I'm like, you know, this is not my first rodeo. I can do this. I can handle it. And I heard the doctor speaking to a med student out in the hallway. They were already preparing for the appointment. And right away I should have called out, I don't mind med students. This was a woman doctor, and I noticed the air of she wanted to be the expert. She is the expert, but in the process she belittled and dismissed me and all of my symptoms. I barely spoke. She talked a lot, which I also didn't mind a little bit. I would rather a doctor talk a lot, but I also would like them to ask questions. And instead, she made many assumptions about my medical history. The first one being, why are you in a wheelchair? Which is a good question. And it was so normalized for me by that point. I was like, oh, because I can't stand for long. That's my first, that's what I said. And what I forgot was also my legs are kind of weird. That would have been an important one to mention, but I didn't, because I had been so, at that stage, I didn't know that I don't know how to describe this, so bear with me here, guys, but I didn't notice. This is so weird to say because I did notice, but I didn't put it together myself. I didn't notice a lot of the ways I was accommodating my life because of my weakness standing. And I kept saying that I couldn't stand and saying it was related to orthostatic hypotension, which a lot of it is. I was diagnosed with that dysautonomia through a tilt test. I passed out. They didn't get a very clear reading on me as I passed out, so they had to wait till I was laying flat, and when I did, my blood pressure was and so that's in the notes. They gave me apple juice, I felt like crap, but I passed out under 10 minutes. I think it was 8 minutes or something, I'm not sure. Very uncomfortable. Not a fun test at all, but yeah. And that was done by one of the doctors that was a good one, who actually believed me and was frustrated that I was being dismissed in other areas. So they're out there. Those doctors are out there. But this movement specialist doctor, I was giving her the benefit of the doubt. She was really putting on this air of she knew everything. I was like, okay, all right, I'll trust you. I'll go with this. But as soon as she started going through my medical history and sitting there going through all the notes that the doctors had put in there, and just any of the test results that came back, I saw when she would just be like, yeah, but she wouldn't ask me. She wouldn't talk to me. I was literally sitting right there. But I could see her go, yeah, but. And she did that enough times that it was like, dude, these are all relevant. Please talk to me. Some of them might have not been as relevant. Sometimes I pulled a tendon and I had to get support for that. I could get that. But there are some things that are really weird. Why, as a 23-year-old, did I have to go get all these urological tests done? Why couldn't I pee, man? That's a weird one. Why can't I stand up for long? Other weird ones. And so for her to sit there and act like I'm sitting in a wheelchair, she really... Oh, I just got re-triggered, sorry. I just remembered that I had been seeing psychologists, psychiatrists, neuropsychiatrists. I had been diagnosed through multiple sources for years and years. Like, it's no secret that I had mental health issues. I have OCD, anxiety, depression, and newly in 2018, PTSD. And so, of course, she was focused on the PTSD. And she's like, oh, this must be functional neurological disorder, functional movement disorder. Because I also had symptoms of dystonia, which had yet been treated. I don't know how to describe that, because like, I'm sitting there, I'm seeing colors, I know that I'm having neck problems and pain and stuff. And this doctor, yet again, is saying that, no, you're not. Your mind's doing it. Okay? No. And so because I had seen other doctors and I was currently in therapy, she's like, no, I need you to see my doctors. I need you to see my neuropsychologist. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll jump through the hoops. And I did it, and it took months to even see the person. And then I had to see another person to start therapy. But like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, look, I've worked through a lot of these anxiety things. Like, this is happening in my everyday. I don't... you know, like, the triggering. It's so frustrating. So then you jump through the hoops and then you go back to the doctor. I did not go back to this doctor. I didn't go back to the movement specialist. However, during that frustration of having to jump through her hoops, and she had, okay, sorry, I gotta jump back. When I was at my appointment with her and she was automatically dismissing things, when it got to the discussion about why I was in a wheelchair, I said, oh, you know, I was diagnosed with orthostatic hypotension. And she was like, And so she looked through the notes. I don't know what she saw. She did read some of the information out loud, so I assume she read everything. Cool. I'm not a liar. Like, great. And so then she said that she was going to give me a poor man's tilt test to look for the pulse. POTS. Which, like, I had had a poor man's tilt test done at the cardiologist before I was referred to the electrophysicist, the one that does the tilt test, that doctor. And so I did a poor man's tilt test, and they found that I did have POTS at that time. But I think there's, like, some overlap, and you never know. Maybe I have both. Maybe it's just, like, I treat it like I have both. But, like, in the books, I think it's only as OH. Orthostatic hypotension. Cool, whatever. It's a dysautonomia. I'll take dysautonomia and I'll go from there to try to treat myself. Noted. But this doctor was interrupted when she was about to do the poor man's tilt test, which I'm kind of grateful for it, because it felt like she was doing it just to tell me I didn't have it. And I wasn't there for that vibe. I'm not interested in that. I want to find out why I'm having these weird movement specialist. let's leave the POTS and stuff, and I appreciate that because it can be connected with the brain. Obviously, there's like the whole thing. But anyways, like I said, I like to give doctors benefit of the doubt, but I can't give this woman any more benefits of the doubts because I give her lots of doubt. Because soon after, I didn't feel good about that. My husband definitely did not feel good about my appointment, and I wish, in hindsight, I had brought him up. He's better at making a scene. I'm very, like, you know, I'm like, oh, okay. I'll gather the information. I'll observe. I like doing that. But then behind the scenes, I might be like, actually, you know, I didn't like that. But it takes upon reflection to be like, maybe that would have been a moment to be like, I don't like that. No. And I've had doctors where I have done that in person, like where I've ended up crying because I couldn't get any help. I couldn't get relief. But anyways, other stories, other times. So this doctor, third movement specialist, who was basically diagnosing me with FND and saying it was in my head, it was like a conversion disorder thing. And she was kind about it. She was saying that it wasn't that it was in my head, is that this is also used as kind of an umbrella catch-all term for a lot of different neurological changes that they can't quite describe yet. And I believe she told me, I think this was the movement specialist that told me Parkinson's would have been considered under this umbrella term until they were able to really differentiate this was a thing. I have since learned, here, I'm going to put this in right now. I have since learned perhaps I should have seen a neuromuscular disorder specialist, because HSP is technically a neuromuscular thing. Like it affects the muscle cells, you know? And so I think they are better equipped to handle these kinds of changes and differences, and they might have better questions. So if you're here and you saw a movement specialist or 3 like me, consider looking into neuromuscular disorder specialists, neuromuscular specialists, something like that. Also look into genetic research areas, things like that. Me personally, I forget how I found them, and I'm grateful. Look, I'm wearing, okay, this is a different necklace, different story, different time of my life, but it's a 4-leaf clover, and I actually went to Clover Genetics, and they're located just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Andy, who I met, very helpful. He was very passionate about this, and he had helped other people. He had a whole team. He helped me through the process of getting insurance to cover the genetic testing, and I did pay him out of pocket, but the genetic testing through Invitae only cost me $100 compared to over $1,000 had I not had my insurance working with us. And he was very good with taking the notes. Tons of systems were involved, and so I appreciate that he didn't judge whenever I mentioned different symptoms. He didn't go, this girl's got a lot going on. She must be lying. There was none of that. It was very straightforward. It was like, okay. And I felt like we were both on a team going towards answers. I feel like you should feel that way with any doctor. I don't think he's a doctor. I'm not saying that. He's a counselor. But I feel like people on your team should always have this mindset. If you run up against someone like the movement specialist who was like, yeah, but, do not listen to the yeah, buts. Find the people that say yes. And that's a little improv theater tip for you. Okay. So let me go back to this question again. Yeah, how can I speak to a geneticist? Girl, find one yourself. That's what I did. I researched, I looked at their website, I looked at reviews, I did my due diligence, and I reached out. Because at this point, I had lost a lot of my life too. I wasn't able to work. I didn't think I could ever drive again at that point. But after my results came in, and after I learned more about my condition, and after I joined all these support groups and learned even more, and I started to feel really confident in myself, especially like just the knowledge that, girl, I knew it. I was right. Ooh. And other family members were able to get tested, find out their results, have, peace of mind or know stuff, and keep that in mind. So like, I'm helping the rest of my family. It's my legacy, I guess, like I'm looking out for people, not just myself, but this came from purely looking out for myself. It might have been motivated to also look out for my kids, because what if they ended up having similar symptoms? But also, oh my gosh, what if like having answers would then give me confidence and peace of mind and realize what accommodations I needed and be able to clearly speak those, and then find jobs and bosses that were willing to accommodate and saw the value in me, even if I couldn't walk all the time, So it really was a win-win. I was doing a lot of learning on the side for jobs and like what kind of accommodations you ask for, because I just didn't know. There was no answer for all of this stuff until I saw a genetics counselor. And then boom, 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 boom. Right down the row of like medical journal information. Symptom. Mine. And not just like vague ones, but like literally ones that seem like they don't make any sense together. Like my eye issues, optic nerve atrophy, and then the urinary system. It's like, what? They like have nothing to do, but oh my gosh, I was like, oh, and my drop foot when I was 19. Oh, that has to do with it too? Well, color me curious. Okay. So like, oh my gosh, I cannot speak volumes loud enough to be like, oh my gosh, the peace of mind I got from the genetics testing coming back. And obviously, I think I mentioned this before, I had never heard of HSP. But the irony is my grandmom, she would say like, we're very sensitive people, so we're highly sensitive people, HSP. And so I think it's really cute that like, she didn't know this either, but she also had HSP, like the other kind of HSP. Or maybe she did know. She knew I was told growing up that there was a genetic eye muscle condition that ran in the family. That's what I was told. We didn't know it affected other things. I found that out. Me, myself, me. I'm a genius. No, I just listened. I listened. I listened to myself. I listened to my family. I listened to the voices around me. Gave them a bit too much weight, I think. Oh. That last movement specialist, she told me not to see any more doctors. Point blank. She told me not to see any more doctors. Like I was doing it for fun. Like I was collecting them all like they were Pokemon. And I remember going, I don't think legally you can say that. I was so confused. She just was treating me like a psych patient. So yeah, I did not go back to that doctor. I actually sent her the results of my genetic tests and said, hey, we found HSP. And she's like, actually, I don't know. Pretty sure not. And so I'm like, okay, deuces, peace. And so, no. And then I did more research. I joined the support groups and I learned that perhaps I should be more looking at the neuromuscular conditions specialists. And so that's where I'm at. I have not yet seen a doctor. Life has gotten very, I almost said difficult. It's gotten very busy, and this is a good sign, guys. You ready for it? You ready for it? I have jobs. I work. I can work again. It's not a perfect system. I still have very sick, bad days. I've learned since then that SPG7 is a mitochondrial disease. And so things that affect, there's like an immune aspect to it. Don't quote me yet, but there's an immune aspect. And I was diagnosed with like an off-brand Sjogren's. And so when I get sick, my body reacts by shriveling up like a little raisin, regardless of how much water and how much I try. And it affects the brain. Like it there's moisture all over. So it's a big thing. There are lots of things that are related to SPG. So it's just, I feel very heartened and passionate, and the amount of relief, the amount of happiness I am able to experience now, realizing first of all that I was right, and to learn about a new condition that explained a lot of things, and that I can just be an advocate because I am a giant chatterbox. Like I do like to talk, I do like to connect with people. And I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of putting my stuff out there. I'm not afraid of looking stupid or crazy, or I'm not afraid of the judgments people place on me, because literally it's been my entire life that peers have tried to judge me because they were A, jealous, B, that's mainly it, is jealous. We all have, like, when we're young, we just don't know what we're upset about or what we're triggered by. And so I definitely was a student that I took the brunt of that in a lot of groups, in a lot of social circles, and I would just take it, like similar to how I am now, where I'm just like, well, that's interesting, but I give people the benefit of the doubt, even if it still injures me. And that's something I'm working on. That's a big aspect of like my eating disorder, which is why this channel exists to begin with. But the entire process of overcoming my eating disorder and working with my own self-esteem led me to where I am here, and it made me better at going, no, you don't know, doc, I know. And I found people that also agreed, I don't want to say also agreed with me, but they agreed that something was strange. And that's all I needed. You need the doctors that go, you need those. Color me curious. You need the doctors that are curious. So yes, I work now and I have hobbies. I mean, I've always had hobbies, but the frustration of being sick and not being able to know what triggers me, I have to take my food sensitivities very seriously, else I get sick. My body will start attacking the moisture cells if I don't listen. So I have to take that seriously. And so diet definitely improves my symptoms. There are things you can't change, like hormonal fluctuations. I wish there was more research on, I mean, this is a very specific topic, but women with SPG and hormone fluctuations, again, very specific, especially for such a rare disorder. In general, if we just focused on hormonal fluctuations of women, and then we could like apply it to rare diseases, because like that, I don't want to get, so you think like women get more hypermobile at certain stages of their menstrual cycle, and I'm kind of like EDS. which is why I had genetic testing done. I thought I had a kind of EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Color me surprised. Did not. I had a neuromuscular disorder. Ooh, interesting. Neuromotor disorder? Yeah. So, but I noticed the hypermobility, and it's kind of like ataxia-ish too. There's like I'm loosey-goosey. And I noticed that it was worse around certain times of my period, or my cycle, when women in general are more loosey-goosey. And it has to do with a hormone, like a specific hormone difference. And so I see the correlation, and I want doctors and researchers to be like, oh yeah, look at that. That's what I would like. That's me personally would like, because perhaps that could give us a cure. I don't know. So when people were saying that it was caused by menopause, there could be some little bits. This is to the one person that left that comment. They mentioned that doctors would blame menopause. There could be some little bits, but if they can't back it up with like the evidence and the science yet, they have no, I don't think they should be saying maybe, no. Find someone who knows. If you don't know, refer me out. I'll handle it, but they better be good. I've got standards now. I've got a job to do. But yeah. So how can you speak to a geneticist? I did not see a geneticist. I saw a genetics counselor. There is a difference. A geneticist, pretty sure they work specifically in research. Don't quote me on that. I will double check that. You might be able to find a geneticist in a teaching hospital or in a research facility. The research I have done, Mayo Clinic, Mass Gen, Cleveland Clinic, and then anywhere where the HSP specialists are. So I think there's like through Michigan State University. Those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head after joining these support groups and getting information there. So I highly recommend anyone who is here, if you're not already, join the support groups on Facebook. Join all of them. Join the one in Britain too. Join them all. Let's all like come together, learn about our symptoms. And there's so many different kinds of SPGs, obviously. There are like 80 plus they're at now. And we're lucky number 7. Me and this commenter and a lot of people out there. So let's just talk. Let's do it. So I do still plan on making other videos about HSP and going down the systems. The first video I made was about my vision. I think the next one I might do my ears. Eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Sorry, I've got young ones under the age of 4, so it makes me think of that. But yeah, I did eyes. I'm going to do ears next, because that's definitely a tail. And then I do want to do, I don't think I have anything for nose, sorry guys, other than I know, the nose, I don't know. Maybe I'll do sinuses for nose, I don't know. Nah, I don't know. But there is some stuff with the mouth that I could acknowledge, and I would do mouth and throat together, this bit right here. And eventually I will get to like the larger motor areas, like the legs, that's a big one. I'm curious to do that one because obviously it's like one of the main symptoms that you see with HSP is affecting the lower limbs. But for me, because it seems so like it's sensory and it's one-sided for me, for my personal journey, it's not the biggest one, but it is. But I just didn't notice how much it was affecting me until all of a sudden, oh, I have been accommodating for that. So I am very interested and like excited about sharing that one for me personally, because I feel like it'll be a journey for me to go, oh, wow, cool. Okay. So I hope this answered the questions about like reaching out to a genetics counselor. It gave some information about what I went through. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments if you feel comfortable doing that. I read them. I empathize, sympathize. I do all the thises. And I definitely cherish them, and I think of them often. I'm like, oh, I want to share this. I'm like, let's connect. Let's do this. Let's get out there. Let's power through, guys. We can do it. Okay. So leave me comments. Let me know if anything I said resonated with you or you related to. I would love to hear that. Yeah, I'm going to do my sign off. Okay. So stay safe, stay strong, and stay tuned into yourself. I'll see you guys later. Bye.